From DBS Bank, Raju Nair. First, some supporters to thank, and thank you for listening. Here it is, the fully integrated cloud CX platform that you need to act smarter, respond faster, and be first in CX. Now you can turn innovation into value, scale up when you need, and add new capabilities whenever the situation demands it. One experience, a single unified solution for employees and customers. One cloud, a single cloud offering based on AWS public cloud technology. One path for migration to the CX1 platform. The fully integrated cloud customer experience platform from NICE, allowing you to be first in CX. Visit nice.com for more. Leaders responsible for operations, information technology, customer experience, contact centers, customer care, service and support are invited to register for a free CCW digital membership. Membership includes networking with 100,000 plus qualified industry professionals, quarterly executive research reports, product matchmaking, and more. Go to ccwdigital.com to join the community. That's ccwdigital.com.
Raju Nair, DBS Bank. I had regionally the customer journey experience for the consumer banking group.
The customer journey experience, which now includes, of course, joy.
Yes. We want to make banking joyful. Isn't it an oxymoron?
It is.
Banking. Have you heard anyone saying, wow, today I'm getting up to go to a bank to find joy?
Exactly. I would love to have a fantastic experience. Let me go to the bank.
So that is what it sounds utopian, but it sounds that's something that will differentiate us. That if we aspire to that, wherever we land, we'll be better off. Right? So from a perspective of DBS's own transformation, it was, I'm now in DBS for 12 years.
Okay.
And I have this whole transformation journey, which we know now, has started in right earnest from early 2010. And I've been part of the whole transformation journey since that time, before my present role as a core part of the actually group transformation program and the whole customer experience transformation there. And then recently, last year, I moved into a line role for actually heading this function for our consumer banking group. But so I think when we started, we didn't, if you had talked to us about customer journey, talk to us about joy, these were not words and things we talked about in early 2010. Very basic stuff.
Yeah. It had something to do with your new leader coming in and the way that he made sure that the board was measuring him. Is that right?
So you're spot on. With Piyush joining the bank, one of the first things he did, when it started with a few things, right? So when he stated our new aspiration then was to become the bank of choice for Asia. And he then said that, okay, we are a bank of choice for Asia, so we need to stand for Asian service. What is Asian service? And the fact that even at that point of time, we spent almost 4 to 5 months defining what is Asian service. And he gave us that time. And then at the end of talking to all our customers and employees across the 6 markets, we came up with 96 different themes of what is Asian service. And then him, along with the top 50 of the bank, sat in a room and heard those 96 themes, immersed in verbatims that customers and employees told, and then distilled it down to 6. And then we further distilled it down to 3, which became our respectful, easy to deal with, and dependable, which is RED, our acronym for Asian service, what we call our DBS Asian service standards. Even then, we ran that as a full cultural program then. And, both trying to improve the usage of this as a cultural aspect of the bank and even changing our processes, because people said you can't just talk about it and then nobody sees any impact in the actual processes of the bank.
Right.
So we ran a whole, what we called a hardware and a hardware program. Hardware was to actually change the processes, because which was for a service organization, those are hardware, to really make a difference. And I used to lead that hardware part of the program where he used to make process improvements, and there he made adoption metrics right at the top of the house. So from the end of 2010 till now, every quarter, we have what we call a Customer Experience Council, and he has chaired it without fail with our top leaders of the organization. And that has kept the consistency. He had kept it top of the house. When he created group scorecards, he made adoption metrics of adopting RED. When we later moved in 2012 end into 2013 into the customer journey language.
Yeah.
And that was also an interesting transition, right? Because in 2012, he asked us, we are doing very well in improving the processes and making it more better off for the customer. But is this going to make us the bank of choice? Then one thing, as we were reflecting on his question and thinking deep, we realized that though we are improving, we are still inside out.
What did that mean?
Which means that we were still looking at our processes and saying that, these processes, there is some friction in him adopting our processes, or we'll remove some of that friction, or make him wait less. Yes, those were good for him because he had no choice. He had to take our processes.
Sure, right.
But we will make it easier. He can wait less, and we would improve, and that was good. But is it truly? He does it because he's our bank of choice. So then we said, how do we move the organization from inside out to outside in? Said that we needed something different, and that is when we landed in the third quarter of 2012. We decided we needed to change the paradigm of service and experience transformation from the process to the customer journey.
That was the centrifugal force. That became the centrifugal force.
And that, when we realized that, and we said, because when you ask a person, now tell me about the customer journey, he or she could not start with the process, which is internal.
Right.
He or she had to start with the customer journey. He said, customer journey, what's that? So I map the process. No, I'm not talking about our process. Where does the customer's journey start?
Yeah.
So just changing that question, changing the starting point, forced people to start thinking outside in.
Yeah.
The other thing, of course, we realize is just because we change it, they do not know how to respond to it. Okay, but then how do I figure out where the customer journey is? Then we said that bankers are very used to sitting in a room, analyzing data, process, because we are a regulated industry, improving the process. So process skills all are very good. But when you ask these kind of questions, they get lost. And that's when we also realized that how do we bring this culture into the organization? And that's when we said that we needed to bring a different form of thinking, of approaching this. And we deliberately then brought in the whole human-centered design thinking frame into the organization.
How did you find that?
So it's a very interesting personal story for me. It's from a perspective of, I was heading the process improvement very successful. And in October, to my boss then, who was the overall transformation head, I said that, I think we need to either, if I run that, which is successful and doing well, and try to answer this question, we will not work.
Can't do both.
Can't do both. Because I will be distracted by the success of the other in giving when we decided this is the right thing. He said, good, if you really want to do it, and good on him. He said, okay, then. So I took 2 or 3 people out of the team and created a separate team and gave off that function to another colleague of mine to run.
You guys keep going with process improvement. I'll be over here.
Yeah. And when we defined, my people were confused. They said, are you sure? Why? That's what we do day in, day out. You're saying, no, don't need to do. We'll think for a couple of months. So they said, are you sure? And he said, yes. So that's when we researched and we looked at the world, and we saw that this whole design thinking movement, the maker movement in US, the Silicon Valley was then in 2012 slowly getting active from a perspective of news coming out, right? And maker movement was making prototyping, building was important. People were starting. Those were the initial days when people are saying that people need to become more acceptable of not knowing the answer. How do you then find out if you don't know the answer? Because so we put all of these things together. What kind of capabilities do people need to be able to say that, I don't know what the customer wants. Maybe I should try some things. I should maybe how do I find out? How do I immerse in the customer's lives? So that's when we said that, hey, we researched around and we found that, okay, design thinking and human-centered design capabilities. We looked at IDEO and looked at other companies in the world who were doing it. I was researching heavily around the world at that time. In early January, I decided I have to introduce design thinking into the organization, because with the kind of skill sets that brings in and the frame of mind that prepares you in, that you are okay not knowing, as long as you have a stakeholder and a problem for that stakeholder you want to try, go first immerse. That is where we then worked with an organization called Luma from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Very interesting how I came on them. Singapore government actually brought them to Singapore.
Okay.
Singapore also had similar challenges. Very regulated country. They said, how do we make Singapore more innovative, people more things? So
the country itself. Yeah, right.
So they had a government department which had gone around similarly in 2012, as I understand, gone and brought IDEO in. And also one of the other agencies in there worldwide. So I rode on their scanning of the world. They found this institute called Luma out of Pittsburgh, who are a design thinking, human-centered design specialist, leader thinking. And they found out from US they are a very good, and they brought them. And brought them actually for the government departments to immerse in.
Right.
I found out that they are bringing these guys. And in January, I made a pitch to them saying that, hey, we are DBS, almost pally part of the government, Temasek owned. We are ready. Come and see. We are ready. We are asking these questions already.
Yeah.
We are asking these questions already. Why don't you include us in your pilot training and immersion?
Interesting.
And we made a pitch and part conjecture, part good timing, part our preparedness, which they saw that we were already ready and to absorb it. Then they said, we will include you in the group of government departments who are going to get immersed, because it was free, sponsored by the government.
Well, that's a great cost.
Yes. And so I did not have to convince any of my bosses for paying for it. So they were very happy, and I was happy to, and we did a full 3-week immersion. And we went out, they took us looking, we took our own problem. I created a group of 4 or 5 people. Within my team, we immersed, they took us out, we interviewed people, tried to find out, immersed in brands, did the whole thing of what they call looking, understanding and making. How do you look to observe the people's lives? How do you understand their priorities and challenges? Then how do you make and define possibilities and test and iterate with them to be able to come up with something that means is a solution to their issues and problems or aspirations.
Right.
So then that was when we realized that is when we made a pitch internally to our CEO and our CIO, saying that we think we should invest in this and make this a core of the change for the next stage. If we really want to answer the question, are we going to become a bank of choice?
Right.
1, yes, journeys. 2nd, bring in human-centered design as a very strong way of, we need to make the culture. Because for us, very key was, how do we change the culture? It was not about just changing one project. It was, how do you change the way, the mindset of how the people think? At that time, we were 18,000 people. Now we are 22,000 people. But it was, how do you change their mindset? And it said that bringing this human-centered design in as the anchor for ability to think and visualize what is the customer journey, what is their job to be done. Not their job to be done is not your onboarding your product. Is not their job to be done is not engaging with your process.
Yeah.
So they come in, and when many things initially we used to ask simple questions, right? who wakes up and says, I want a mortgage loan? They wake up and say, I want a home there.
That's the question.
That's the question.
Right.
So I want a home there, and that is his journey of getting a home somewhere he or she desires. He may have functional, emotional, he may want a job, a home, a particular locality, because everybody who has been successful in his community has a home in that locality.
Right.
So if he has to tell to his community that he or she has arrived, he can by having a home in that locality. So it is not only about owning a home, it is owning a home somewhere, because that is beyond just the functional job of having a roof over your head for your family. Some of them, that may be good enough because that gives a sense of security. For others who are in a higher state, they want more than just the security of a good home. They are also trying to make a social statement. Right? So we had to tell people that you have to understand customers who are trying to make what. It's not only just about getting and there in that process, they may need some financing.
Now that we know where we're going to wind up, let's go ahead and get DBS into that person's journey.
So that is where we started saying that our job, and increasingly over the years, we started becoming very clear that our clear job is not about our products and services, is how well we can get embedded in the customer journey.
So, Red, I want to kind of break it down and make sure I understand and we understand each of the three pieces. So take us through that.
So Red was our anchor. So R is respectful. So when we said respectful, there are simple things, right? You don't want to repeat yourself.
Agreed.
When you go from channel to channel. You don't want to fill details that you have already filled. You want to be recognized when that you have been with the bank and you have these transactions over there. So we said all this are forms of showing respect to somebody who you know.
Yeah.
And we do it in personal things, right? If someone comes, you greet the person, you do that, your family member, you remember the name, they feel respected, they feel valued.
That's it.
So that's the simple thing. Then we said that is respectful. And for in Asia...
It doesn't cost much to do that either, right? Yeah.
But in Asia, and that's also a very basic courtesy people are expecting. Then the other big thing, which everyone is guilty of in some and large organizations, because we layers process over process, and sometimes we hide or sometimes forced by regulator to add a lot of things. How do we become E, which is easy to deal with? So some of these you may say are a little overlap here and there, but it had clear messages. So how do you really, in the form that what they are trying to get done, will they go out and say, hey, that DBS experience, DBS was easy to deal with? Because there's so much happening in everybody's life.
Yeah. Now, how did you, respectful, fine, yes, we get it, but easy to deal with. And you mentioned highly regulated industry with so much to do. And we were talking about process improvement before. How, that seems like a more difficult step. How did we accomplish that?
It was a difficult step, but there are simple things you could do. We anchored, one of our biggest thing is customer wait time.
Okay.
If you apply for a credit card, and if you apply and you put it into your post, at that point in time, a lot of people used to fill forms for applications, whether it's online, it will still drop somewhere. Somebody has to pick it up and process. And if you get it in 7 days, if we can reduce that wait time, and in 2 days, we said, hey, this was easy, I did it. And other forms of easy was, a lot of things are not about waiting. It's your mental clock running, your anxiety.
Sure.
Right? So I may have finished processing, but then I give it to my postal department, who then delivers it to you. You think your job is done, but the customer thinks DBS is still not delivered.
Absolutely.
So what do you incorporate into your process? At that point of time, how do I keep him or her updated? Yes, I have sent it. It's on the way. It's coming. His or her mental clock stops.
Yeah, that's it.
So how do you find ways where he says, this was easy to get an update. This was easy. I did not have to then call up to figure out what is happening with it.
Right.
So how do you take away these kind of struggles in the journey?
Yeah.
of getting updated, waiting for stuff, or having something where I need to fill up 20 things, make it intuitive based on the context.
Yeah.
Those then make him feel that this is easy to do business with.
Absolutely. So if you kind of shorten the amount of time that I'm spending, it makes it easy to deal with. But I love the example of, along the way, it's going to take this much time, and we are communicating that to you, and that makes it easy to do.
Because, then all of us are looking for signals to feel secure. I mean, feel that, I'm in control, things are happening, I don't want surprises.
Yeah.
So giving those cues back makes it. Then the last was dependable, because, again, we are a bank, and we came out, this was after the 2008, 2009, trust was a deficit.
That's a good way to say it, Raju. Trust was a deficit, certainly.
So we were all running huge deficits in our trust accounts with the customers.
Yes.
In that period of time. And so we needed to really prove to them that we are dependable.
Right.
If dependable, not only from a perspective of trust and also reliability. So that if I said, I will be open, you will get it in 5 days, you will get it. If I said that, you can expect my systems to be up all days a week, just 2 hours downtime on a Sunday morning for batch runs, which were a period of the past. Nowadays, technology allows you to be 24/7. Then you stick to, so expectations are made and met. And plus the generic trust of believing that you are doing the right thing by me. That is the other aspect of, which is a more talked about aspect of dependability, which is, so how do we, and that's a constant thing. How do I change how we interact with our customers from a perspective of our relationship managers? How do we don't come about as people who are trying to push a product?
Sure. Yeah.
And that is where, again, this focus on customer experience and moving into customer journeys was very key, because what we are trying to now increasingly do within DBS is to say that, hey, you as a product manager are not really a product manager in the term of managing products. You are actually managing customer journeys where he is trying to get some jobs done. And that is also changing, and we are slowly changing a lot of what we think should be what we manage. So we manage your financial well-being, not selling you investments in insurance.
Right. Which brings us back to the CEO presiding over quarterly customer experience meetings. Get into that, because that is seemingly shocking for the CEO to spend that much time specifically on customer experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So having a customer experience council from, as I said, 2010 end till date, every quarter, and having this ongoing, you see, in large organizations, though the CEO is on the top of it, it takes time to move organizations.
Sure.
And people are looking for signals, right? So if they think, okay, maybe is this the fad of the year? Is the flavor of the year?
Yeah.
Maybe he will, move on to something else.
Yeah.
The other business heads and other people, everyone, it's not that, I'm not saying that no one believes customer is important, right?
Sure.
Everyone does it.
Sure.
But the focus on transforming ourselves on customer experience, giving that much focus, various executives did not realize the importance that they must pay. So what I always say is customer experience is not only customer service. Customer experience is a big strategic tool. A business driver was important when they realized the CEO is giving so much time.
Absolutely.
And every quarter he is talking about it with all his one-downs and doing it regularly, using his town halls. Slowly it brushed off on different of his one-downs. And all of them also started in different points of time. Everyone has his different point when the change cycle is triggered. But him doing it regularly met all the other people in one-downs at different points of time, using different examples that somebody had done to help the other person unlock. And doing that, talking about it for every market, doing annual showcases around that, and him personally coming down. In fact, one of the things, he even wrote a poem. He also wrote a poem around, how red and customer journey and human-centered design. And people in our organization were flabbergasted by his level of involvement
Absolutely. Maybe you can give us some examples that came out of town halls. That would be great. How much could you tell us about what might have happened in one of those council meetings? How close to...
So a few things happened. Initially, because we anchored this as a core or a proxy, as a culture change proxy. So we said that we really want to see adoption. So we had, in different periods of time across the years, different things were focused. So initially we wanted to take a few things which we really wanted to change, like what I said, wait times. So we made it very simple. Initially we want wait times across our call centers, across our branches, across our ATMs, across various big processes. How do I reduce customer wait times? And we had this whole customer hours metric. And we used to monitor that and showcase the big projects and how they are tracking on that. Then we used to have the red, and we used to do town hall. So how many people have been activated in the different sessions, and how much of the organization is covered? How is this whole red thing being incorporated into the whole learning and development curricula of the bank for the different job families? That was showcased there. So it was a whole. So operations, what processes are you improving?
Right.
HR, how are you incorporating this into the different HR interventions of learning and development across the bank? Because that's what people come in.
Yeah.
Onboarding, how are they looking at? So all this was covered in this top of the house conversation.
So it seems like, I don't mean to simplify it, but that he was and is simply running the business from the customer's point of view.
I couldn't have said it more simply than that, but because that was really the core, because we believed that, and we did it, and step by step, we kind of, as we learned more, we grew on it. I wouldn't say we knew all the answers. If you had told me in 2010 when we started that I would have a job title with customer journey and those kind of things, I didn't know about it.
No, you're an engineer, right?
Yeah, I'm an accountant. Actually, accountant.
Accountant, even better. There's no way that this would be a customer experience person, right?
Then I wouldn't have known, right?
Yeah.
And we learned, we stepped, we had the focus on the customer, but what is going to take our organization to the next level? We kept asking, kept looking, kept imbibing, and we had the support of the leadership, and we invested a whole lot. When I say the Customer Experience Council, but the amount of effort, the leadership training and engagement, because you see a lot of leaders are very, very important, because we may say things in forums or but in day-to-day, how they behave is what their teams are seeing.
Absolutely.
What kind of questions they ask is what their teams are going to then figure out that this is what the answers he's looking for.
Sure, act upon. This is what I have to do. If he or she is asking that question, then everything that I do should be based on getting to an answer to that question. Why would I focus on anything else?
Anything else, right? Yeah. So then building that leadership mandate and realization or appreciation around what is customer journeys, what is human-centered design, what is RED, different periods of time, getting them deeper, experiential sessions. The organization invested a lot in developing and executing these experiential sessions, and a whole lot of investment. Banking, getting your top 250 every year together to immerse in what is human-centered design, what is customer journey, what is journey thinking, what is RED and service culture. These are big investments. People coming together thinking, I'm coming for an annual offsite, and half to 1 day of those offsites being dedicated to these topics, unheard of.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like it is now a poor idea for it not to focus on those things, right? If you're going to pull them offsite, let's make sure that we must be talking about the customer experience and kind of re-engineering and reforming the company around the customer. I have not been able to ask you any questions about yourself, and unfortunately, I already have to ask you the 3 final questions.
Okay.
But just very quickly, before those 3 final questions, when did you realize you were going to be an accountant? I wonder. Because you said you grew up in Calcutta, right?
I grew up in Calcutta. My father was an entrepreneur of sorts. And he wanted me to get a commerce and accounting education so I did that. I became a Bachelor of Commerce, and then I went on to cost accounting, and I was doing other stuff. And that's when I also did a specialized IT diploma. And then I realized it's not cool to work with my father. And doing accounting, IT is the coolest thing. My friends will, I'll have things to talk of. So I said that accounting is not my dig.
Got it.
I went to IT software. So I started actually a software and services firm of my own. I was an entrepreneur for first 10 years of my life. I started with being a sub-custodial, doing a kind of a business process outsourcing function for custody services in security and services for the banking world. I earned me a lot of money before I was 25.
Good.
I lost them by 26.
Okay.
Because technology disrupted me then.
Sure.
And then I went on to software services. I was a programmer also, so worked with in the rail and transportation industry, did a lot of automation there. Then moved on to try to establish with one of the premier engineering institutes in India called IIT, Kharagpur, which is near Calcutta, to start a distance education program like the Coursera of these times. Was a little early for its time.
Sure.
In early 2000, did not have the infrastructure in India. I did not have deep enough pockets.
Right.
I spent all my savings in doing marketing, setting up centers for that.
Again.
And this time I got disrupted by not knowing what my customer was not an engineering student, was a executive or a young professional in the cities who were trying to actually learn Oracle to be able to go into a firm and write some SQL queries, while the engineering professors were ready to talk about RDBMS theory and these kind of stuff.
Right.
And I did not understand what the customer needed.
Yeah.
And I had a good brand, but not a good product, and which was not getting refreshed fast enough because of the partnerships I had. And this time, not knowing the customer and the product well disrupted me. I lost all my money.
Yeah.
I was 33 and pretty much wiped out. Just got married, and my wife said, maybe a good job looks good.
Yeah. I love the fact that you're an entrepreneur, Raju, but maybe.
So, I said, okay, let me take a break. So I actually decided, let me close all parts of my business. Then I lived off a salary for a year. Yeah. Came to Singapore, did a master's with Nanyang Business School here with my prof. Did a did a project for DBS. Yeah. And I was applying to few companies, Cisco, DBS. DBS offered me the first job. Anyone who offered me a monthly pay then was good. And I said, I'm onto it. And people in Singapore said, financial services is a good place to earn some money back. Sure. So I said, good.
There we go.
There I go. And I got in, I was in operations for the first 5 years in DBS. Yeah. And that's at the end of my operations career. I was always, because of I have always approached every job I do with my mindset is I'm not a bred corporate executive. My first 10 years of life being an entrepreneur in a small country. So orientation of looking at your stakeholders, a customer, I had to sell, I had to do everything. So I had that in me. So any job I went, though I was in operations, my goal was to find out what my business stakeholder wants.
It's your nature. It's your muscle memory. There's no other way to do it. Right.
Yeah. So I had to understand my business stakeholders' need, work, make them successful. And business success was my success. Yeah. And that made me stand out in my operations career also here. And I was always looking for things to become better. And I was ready to take on any new things that came up in the bank, because risk taking was a little bit in me. Yes. So when they wanted to launch new stuff, my hand was always up. Yeah. So I was, and there was some major crisis in some operations area. I said, okay, I'll go and take that area. So, but those became good moves because they made me establish in an organization that was, I had come in from outside 10 years, not in banking. So it helped me establish myself. At the same time, people noticed that I'm ready to take on different stuff. And and because of my nature of being able to work with people. So I think the other thing was incessant focus on adding value to others.
Sure.
So it was not about, as long as you focus on seeing that you are aligned with the other person's objective and you can make him or her successful, you will get the benefit. And the term I always use is you will get a lot of reflected glory.
Oh, reflected glory. I like that. It also explains how when you were doing process improvement, you put your hand up, to come over to customer experience.
But there's slightly different. I mean, my boss then will not say I put my hand up because but I did put up a hand up to sponsor the first process improvement journey. And when I was in operations, when the CEO told him to actually start a transformation program, he told me, come over from operations.
I see.
And I said, wow, should I go over? I can do your stuff being here.
Yeah.
Should I go over? What happens if you close down that shop? I still had the shadow of my wife shouting behind me. So then but lucky I did. He called me back.
Yeah.
He said, no, come. Why do you mean you don't want to come? You come along.
Yeah.
Let's do this. So it's good. And we started the journey together. And the DBS transformation journey in 2010, it's been
amazing. You've put joy into banking.
I would love to. In 2010, I'm proud of the journey we have been through together in DBS. It has made a lot of difference. I've seen the culture of DBS change in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think it has put us where we want to be and really make banking joyful. I know it sounds a bit esoteric, but I think that is what is driving us. How do we truly get embedded in the customer journey? How do we truly embrace the digital world that is upon us?
Amazing.
But make it truly joyful by embedding truly into the customer journey. So I think that is driving all of us. I've now moved into a line journey trying to make that happen. And there are many operational things I'm getting back into now. I'm loving it. And I see in 2 to 3 years, I will have a full life cycle of, moving 10 years through this transformation.
Yeah.
And it'll be, I think, an amazing to reflect back on.
There we go. And which brings us to those 3 final questions. I'll tell you what they are. I'll ask you them in order. What has most surprised you at work along the way? You just brought us through it. What has most surprised you in life and on the soundtrack of your life? One track, one song that's got to be on there. But first things first, you did just bring us through your career trajectory. What has most surprised you at work?
What has most surprised me at work is the amount of love and acceptance I have got. Many people tell me in DBS, we are collaborative and other things, but I have been very grateful to the amount of love and acceptance across the organization that I have received. I think I maybe have taken it it's only when you ask the question I reflect. But I think that is both something I'm grateful for and that's something that I'm surprised, because a lot of things you get done or you feel good about is not what you have accomplished professionally because you have technically done. Is the relationships and the love and the things you get as you go through that journey.
That's part of that reflective glory you were talking about, right?
And that is what has really, I think, something I take away as that has surprised me. And I look back on DBS and I have so many friends and relationships here. I think that is what will stay.
Excellent. That's a good one. What has most surprised you in life?
In life, it's difficult. Nowadays, though we say work-life balance, work and life has become so intermeshed, right?
Yes.
So it's in life, what is surprising me is that you never know where life will take you next. I never knew when I was doing my entrepreneurial journey that I'll end up in Singapore.
You couldn't know that.
I couldn't. I was. Even when I said I will quit and I go, till the March of 2004, in February of 2004, I was actually going to Manchester.
Oh.
It was only in March that my wife and family said that's too far because their admissions were in fall, August. And I was already admitted. Everything was I was going there. They said, no, you're too far. Why don't you stay in Asia? Last minute, and Singapore closes in April, I applied last minute in March, and it changed the course of my life. Instead of going to Manchester, I don't know where I would have been.
Yeah.
And I came to Singapore. So some of these things, life surprises me is that, you don't know, but you have to be ready to stand up and take your chances. And be secure in yourself.
Sure.
Because if you are focused in adding value, doesn't matter what you do, people will notice. And I think that is my biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
Even in life, even in my personal relationships, I focus in seeing that if I am having interaction with somebody, does he or she feel good about spending time with you and adding value?
Focusing out as opposed to focusing in.
Yeah. So I've been trying to do that now with my son as I'm volunteering with his soccer and other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to follow the same and do as much time as I can.
Yeah.
Others, my friends can volunteer more time. I cannot. But as long as you're sincere and you do whatever you do sincerely, I think people will accept you for what you are.
Absolutely. That's very well said. Now, on the soundtrack of your life, one track, one song that's got to be on there. So it doesn't have to be the perfect song. It doesn't have to be the most appropriate song. It doesn't have to be your favorite song even, but a song that along the way would certainly be on the soundtrack of your life.
I'm lost for words because it's not words, it's a song. I like to live in the moment. And interactions. I'm still not very good at maintaining a lot of external relationships through social media and other things.
Right.
But if I engage with people, wherever I engage with them, people know me for that. I am very sincere in the engagement when I'm in the moment.
Yes.
Because I believe you have to live life. So there is one, actually not an English song.
That's fine.
It's a Hindi song which haunts me a bit and tells me that you have to live in the moment. For me, it says, "Jeena yahan, marna yahan, iske siwa jana kahan," which means Jeena yahan means we have to live here. Marna yahan means we have to die here. Iske siwa jana kahan. Outside this, where do you go? So it tells you that everything is in this moment. You live here, you die here. If you cannot make that interaction worthwhile, then don't think beyond that. So I interpret it in that manner.
Yeah.
So that's a piece of lyric that is one of the things that haunts me, or
informs you.
Informs me. Sorry, haunts not the right word. It informs me and inspires me, and it always anchors me to say that don't be carried away. You may achieve a lot of success. There will always be thousands of people ahead of you.
Sure.
But by God's grace, if you are doing right, you will be relatively better off than thousands of people.
Sure.
Be content. Live the moment. See that the people around you are joyful. Because that's the only thing that you can feel good about when you play a part in this world.
Raju, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for your time. Very much appreciate it. And there you have Raju Nair, really encapsulating how CX, it doesn't matter where in the world you are. There are some rules that apply globally. Very much appreciate Raju's time. Very much appreciate yours. Stay tuned.